Hello, everybody. This is Love from Above by your Sibling Spirit Guides. I'm Maureen, and this is my brother.
Hey, Maureen, hey, everyone. This is Brian.
Hey, Brian, we're so happy to be here. If you can believe it, on this podcast, we share daily channelings we receive from star beings, ascended masters, mythical beings who really exist, and occasionally our ancestors. And today's topic is the real truth. Brian, you don't get the real truth from watching the news.
That's a consistent theme we've been telling everyone that we've been getting. So this is um talking more about that real truth that we want to make sure everyone's aware of. So why don't we just jump right into it? And I'll start with the topic one from January 16th of 2024. It says, "We welcome your presence. You are going to include us in your daily observations. We shall continue with the true history of your beloved planet, the civilization of the ancient Pomeranian people belong to a unique space within the time portal. These ancient ancestors of yours indeed discovered that life is a matrix, and they escaped the hologram and lived in harmony. The abrupt ending of their civilization marked a horrible catastrophe which seismic waves consumed the island nation. The term Pomeranian, oh, and that's the end of the transmission. I just added, I wasn't familiar with Pomeranian people, so it says it can refer to two distinct groups. Um, a West Slavic tribe inhabited the Pomeranian region, and the Pomeranians were also known as the German people, um, primarily reside in Germany and Poland today. So the other thing I don't understand is they mentioned it was a island though. So is that like the island nation? So is that like a previous thousands of years ago that region was different, or that's why I wasn't understanding.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never heard of these Pomeranian people, but what this reminds me of is, I think it's Dolores Cannon talks about how the Mayan civilization, like they ascended like into a different I don't know, like in the fifth, you know, in a fifth level vibration. And the same, I was recently in Ollantaytambo in Peru, and Drumvalo in one of his books said, that all those people are still there in that complex, but they're at a different vibration. So it's just really, really interesting. So yeah, I mean, I guess is if we advance to a certain level, then we can just disappear from the third dimension and enter into the fourth or the fifth or the seventh dimension or whatever it is. Um, and so that's what it sounded like that happened here, that they escaped the hologram and lived in harmony.
That's yeah, that's where hopefully we're all headed too, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember reading those stories in those Drumvalo books in the
yeah, yeah, I do recall
Okay.
that.
Yeah. So I'll go on, and this is from November 13th of 2024. Another true history for you. It says, we consult with many to share these truths along your planet. We are known as the Watchers. If only humans could truly pay attention to the thoughts running through their head. You tell me the story of what was the so-called news. The history books, the professors have got it wrong. They focus on events that do not matter and regale the incorrect information to suit their own peculiar needs. We record the truth of all that has occurred on this planet. We wish to share these details with you. Memories of the once golden age of previous generations linger as distant memories. These are regaled in childish cartoons and stories of old, but are rarely regarded as true historic sources to be plumbed and mined. How can one search for deeper meaning of the previous historical events? We say not to worry. The correct attitude is to stay in the present moment. However, the glories of the past point to what is possible. We begin now with the memories of Lemuria and other lands that existed before. However, these loom large in the thought forms of many industrial human beings who bring these memories forward. For while of the veil of forgetting is encased within the loom of memory around a human being, the general impression of the humanic source of previous activities exists always within the auric frame. In these golden, glorious days of old, there was no sickness, illness, no real intentions between one human being to the other of harboring such lower astral forms that only brings destruction to one human being. One's own life existed, and as in one's own life, harmony existed, and as a result, nature fruitfully provided all that was required. So we do have, like, the myths of like this perfect age, this golden age. I mean, those definitely do exist in our childish cartoons and their stories of the old. I mean, Atlantis is considered a myth. I don't know that many people know about Lemuria. Lemuria existed before Atlantis. But Atlantis is definitely a myth that I think people look to as a golden age. What do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of people just think of it as some like, yeah, cartoon, underwater cartoon that isn't really tr accurate or really ever existed, but we know that's it was an actual place and then it sunk, but it was a yeah, golden place. They were at a higher, everyone was at a higher dimension from what, especially all the different books we've read. So um yeah, this it's interesting. I love the no sickness, no illness, no intentions between um each other. So that's sounds like a beautiful place to be, huh, Maureen?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And supposedly, we're returning back to this golden age. We're at the beginning of it.
Right.
Uh, Um, so yeah, and there's a lot of when I think about mythology that people don't realize is real is there's so many different religious texts where they talk about the gods interacting with humans, whether it's Moses in the burning bush or the Hindu texts or whatever. And that's all real, people. I mean, I've spent a lot of time researching this, and it's all real. I mean, there was a time when the gods walked among, well, they called them gods, but they weren't really the God, the creator. But when, these otherworldly beings walked among us. And so yeah, as I'm very interested in this true history, whether it be the time when the gods walked among us or, this golden age that looms in our mythology.
Yeah, exactly. So the next topic was from fairly recent, May 11th, 2025, around unity and revelation. So is- they go on to say, we like that you're presently engaged in meditative practices. These age-old traditions harken back to the true knowledge of the one source. To utilize the body as a vessel to connect with the unseen is a hallowed tradition in multiple religions and religious states. We harken back to these essential practices as gateways for studying the thought processes of the human. Um, we encourage the development of the practice to become one with all your brothers and sisters. Unification approaches as these separate worlds shatter and break. Revealing the true nature of existence, one can no longer bemoan the strategic forces who display their careful plotting. And planning these shall no longer be permitted, as the true nature is revealed to all. Imagine if you were to look at your skies and see the heavenly beings who crisscross your planet, or the true nature of the dome-like structure which contains the planet. We shall say no more, but know that they are the truth that shall be revealed. So I got to stop right there. There's a lot they covered there. So What's your most interesting thing about seeing, if you could look at the skies and see the heavenly beings, you sort of see that, or the dome-like structure which contains our planet? So, um, is there anything like that you want to go into more detail or explain?
Well, there is a ton of, I mean, Brian, that's a Reddit you can go down to, the dome-like structure. And I went through that like a couple, I would say maybe 7 years ago, but there is a lot of information. I'm not going to go into it right now, but if you want to, and it's also referenced in the Bible. But if you want to Google the dome that covers the earth, there's a lot of information about that. So again, it's just another truth that we're not aware of. And you know what, Brian, with regards to, the beings who are zipping around, like I always want to know. So our father, for all those who are listening, our father worked for NASA. And, I just would love to be able to see like real real pictures from what it looks like there, because we know there's all these satellites and all of this, and supposedly there's all these, we got a message, remember, like 2 years ago, that they said that if we could see the beings up there, like that basically there's so many there's so many star beings in the sky, like they're just parked end to end. So, but when you see the pictures from NASA, like it's just the Earth. There's no satellite in the way. How is that possible, Brian? How is that possible?
Yeah, I know. I saw something. I saw like this actually I don't know where it was on the social media that showed like the number of satellites in the sky, and from the 60s today, and now there's so many that it's like it's a it's just a mass of satellites. And the
But
other thing you were talking about,
you never see that in a NASA
yeah,
picture.
yeah. And
No.
exactly. But the other point you were talking about, they reference, yeah, that all the starships that are here to help during this transition time the Earth is going through, and they reference, and we talked about this in an earlier episode, that you can't even. It's like they call it the blue planet, but you can't even see the blue planet because there's so many starships and beings, assisting Earth, that they're almost block the
Yeah.
view.
Yeah. So I'm going to continue on. They say, no harm shall come to those who wish to array their energetic forces with the true source of ultimate power. There is but one, and all who worship him or her shall be redeemed in the final hour. Then they said, you're misunderstanding our greater messages. I thought that when they said the final hour, I mean, I thought that, like, what does this mean? Like, are we all, is everything coming to an end? They said, uh, we shall look for the truth to share with you. These are not frightful times. We not share the end of times, for there only can be new opportunities, new beginnings. There is nothing to fear. So, how many times must we get that message, brother? There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's interesting that they it's just mean the final hour, but not that that's impending or something. I get it. Yeah. So, and then it's just new opportunities as we face these new opportunities for all of us on Earth. So I think it's a great message.
Yeah. So, do you want to close us out with the message from June 11th, 2025?
Yes. The last one is around reclaiming the true history of home and humanity. So it says, darling daughter, beloved son, we wish it to regale you with the tales of your nation's historical past. We are known for our regular positions of observing humanity. Our name is regarded as the Watchers, though we call ourselves by a different name. The history and past of your peoples has been carefully reconstructed to focus on what does not matter. The true history of your historic race has been obscured and buried. We rectify this situation. Now, life originated within the confines of a highly technical, skilled, scientific laboratory to utilize the word science in your connotation denotes an absence of the spiritual essence. This is not true with regards to the situation here. Science and the higher principles of religion are united in creation. Whether creating a thought or a new species, both must be present on the microcosm and the macrocosm. We should provide an example. Say, for example, you wish to plot an extension to your dwelling. I like it, or in addition, I'll say a plot extension. This would be first begin with a need to expand, visualizing, perusing materials for what you wish, coming up with a plan, and then physically installing, hiring the appropriate people to build this extension. A thought becomes reality. Interesting. So, um, yeah, normally you see scientific people are not spiritual people. So
Right,
it's interesting that they're saying that they go together. Um,
right.
so I think I find that really fascinating that you know most scientific like if you can't prove anything that you're saying about spirituality and if you can't prove it then it didn't really it didn't happen or you can't I'm not going to believe in it. So it's interesting. I think that's one thing that I took away from it. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and the opposite is true. If you're a spiritual person, then you have to go by faith and that you don't need to rely on like the proof of the existence. And I mean, I think that this division that my understanding is that it had happened like in the Renaissance, but this division that happened between science and spirituality is a real block that needs to become overcome because yeah, you want to if you're creating something, using the technology, you also want to be united within the spiritual essence of pure divine light to bring something that's of benefit to everybody in the universe. So, yeah, I would think that this would be something that's really we're gonna see a real change in as we move forward into this new golden age that's predicted to be beginning now. What do you think?
Yeah, that's exactly. So I can't wait for it all to happen. And um,
Yeah,
it's exciting times, everybody. So
yeah.
that's all we had to share. Any other closing comments, Maureen?
No, thank you for putting together a very interesting episode, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Bye, everyone.